beyond the sky. How can you dare to try? How can you fight through doubt and fear? How can you make your path clear? Ask how, and your power will rise.
So, we've all heard the stories, right? Norway is supposed to be one of the best, wealthiest, happiest places on Earth. But how did a pretty small nation way up at the top of the world get so incredibly rich without, completely imploding? Well, the answer is way more fascinating than you might think.
Hey everyone, so the easy answer is always, it's the oil money. But that's not even half the story. Actually, for most countries, finding oil is the beginning of a total disaster. So let's really dig into this.
Okay, to really get why Norway's success is so remarkable, we first need to talk about the huge trap that it managed to avoid. Because for a lot of countries, striking it rich with natural resources, it's not a blessing, it's a curse.
Yeah, it's a real thing, and it's called the resource curse. You suddenly find this treasure trove of oil or diamonds, and what happens? It can spark corruption, conflict, and create an economy that's dangerously addicted to one thing that has a crazy volatile price. We've seen this story play out again and again all over the world.
So, that's the big mystery, isn't it? Norway strikes black gold out in the North Sea, and instead of falling right into that trap, they did something completely different. Something, frankly, incredibly smart and forward-thinking.
Their first and probably most famous move was to create what is basically the world's biggest, most responsible piggy bank.
So as all this oil money started to flood in, the government made this absolutely crucial decision. They basically said, hey, this wealth doesn't just belong to us right now. It belongs to every Norwegian for generations to come. So instead of going on some massive national spending spree, they did the exact opposite. They saved it.
And boy, did they save. The fund has grown to a truly staggering size. I mean, look at that number. We're talking about more than $2 trillion. Just to put that into perspective for you, that's over $380,000 for every single man, woman, and child in Norway. Insane.
And the fund's power is global. It's so enormous that it owns, on average, about 1.3% of every single publicly traded company on the entire planet. With investments spread out over 70 countries, it's this quiet giant just humming along in the background of the world economy.
And the real genius is how simple the system is. All the profits from oil and gas, they go straight into the fund. No stopping at go, no collecting $200. Then, that money gets invested all over the world so it can grow. And here's the absolute golden rule. The government can't touch the original money. They can only spend a tiny little piece, about 3% of the returns the investments make each year. This keeps the whole thing safe from short-term politics and makes sure that piggy bank will be around forever.
But here's the thing. A giant pile of money, even one this huge, doesn't just magically create a great society. Lots of countries have these kinds of funds. So what makes Norway so different? Well, that brings us to the second key ingredient, which honestly might be even more important.
The real secret sauce here is trust. The entire system, the fund, the strong welfare state, the high taxes people are willing to pay, it all runs on this deep foundational trust between the people, their government, and their biggest institutions.
And you don't have to take my word for it. The numbers are pretty stark. Just look at this OECD data. A whopping 77% of Norwegians trust their government. Compare that to the average of just 47% in other developed countries. That 30-point gap is massive, and it explains almost everything.
So where does this trust even come from? Well, the OECD kind of breaks it down for us. First, you have a really strong welfare system that actually works. People are highly satisfied with their public services. Second, you have incredibly low levels of corruption. People believe the system is fair. Third, there's this long history of collaboration. The government, businesses, and labor unions all tend to work together to solve problems. And finally, people feel like they actually have a say in how their country is run.
Okay, so it's really easy to look at all this and just think Norway is some kind of perfect utopia. But it's important we add a little nuance here, because the reality on the ground is, well, it's a bit more complicated.
So let's compare the perception with the reality. We see it as a super equal, egalitarian place, right?
But the data actually shows there's a pretty significant concentration of wealth, with the top 1% holding a really big share of business income. And what about the green paradise idea? Well, it actually has one of the highest carbon footprints per person in the world, especially when you factor in all the stuff they consume and, of course, their massive fossil fuel exports.
This quote really drives that point home. The Nordic model, for all its amazing social benefits, is incredibly resource-intensive. If every single person on Earth consumed resources at the same rate as the average person in Denmark, which is a pretty close neighbor and proxy for Norway, we would need almost 5 planets to sustain that lifestyle. Oof!
And that brings us to the central paradox of the whole story. Norway's incredible wealth, the very money that fuels its giant savings account and its amazing welfare state, comes overwhelmingly from exporting fossil fuels. In 2022 alone, we're talking over $170 billion worth. That's almost 3/4 of the country's total exports.
So, after looking at the good, the bad, and the kind of complicated, we're left with one final and really crucial question.
If we had to boil it all down, Norway's secret formula seems to have these 3 key ingredients. First, you need that smart, long-term financial planning, the sovereign wealth fund. Second, you need that pre-existing social fabric of high trust and a strong welfare state. And third, you need a collaborative, market-based economy where everyone agrees to work together.
And that brings us to the big takeaway. Can other countries just copy this model and expect the same results? Or was Norway's success just a product of its own unique history, its small population, its culture, a perfect storm that just can't be replicated anywhere else?
So what do you think? Is this a blueprint that other nations should be following, or is it just a one-off success story? Seriously, I'd love to know your take. Let me know down in the comments.
And that is the story of how Norway got so rich without ruining itself. If you found this whole thing interesting, please do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives just like this one. Thanks so much for watching.
How can you reach beyond the sky? How can you dare to try? How can you fight through doubt and fear? How can you make your past clear? Ask how, and your power